The envelope trembled in Michael's weathered hands. Familiar return address piercing 21 years of carefully constructed peace. Afternoon sunlight streamed through kitchen curtains, dust motes dancing as his coffee grew cold. The paper's crisp edge cut his finger, a tiny pain compared to what unfolded inside. After Eric's death, I've been thinking about us, about the children. Caroline's handwriting, unchanged after 2 decades. Michael's throat tightened, vision blurring, as the first tear tracked down his lined face, dropping onto her signature. Has someone who abandoned you ever returned when they needed something? Share below, like if this reopens old wounds, follow to see if Michael protects the family he built alone. His fingers traced the family photo on the wall. 3 children's graduations, birthdays, achievements, milestones Caroline had chosen to miss. The grandfather clock ticked loudly, marking the moment past collided with present, peace with turmoil. Michael paused in the kitchen doorway, morning light spilling across the worn table where he'd helped with homework, planned college applications, and celebrated 3 children's successes for over 2 decades. The familiar routine, coffee brewing, mail sorting, anchored his days since retirement. He shuffled through bills and flyers, whistling until his fingers froze on an envelope with handwriting he'd never forgotten. 21 years shouldn't matter. But his hands trembled anyway, coffee forgotten as he traced the return address. Caroline. After all this time. The grandfather clock, her parents' wedding gift, ticked accusingly in the sudden silence. "Can't be anything good," he muttered, voice catching. He slid his thumb under the flap, the paper's edge drawing a thin line of pain across his weathered skin. Such a small hurt compared to what spilled out onto the sunlit table. Eric died 3 months ago. I've been thinking about us, about the children. Michael's vision blurred as he read. The mug stopped halfway to his lips, coffee rippling with the tremor in his hand. Memories crashed through the careful walls he'd built. Caroline walking out the door, suitcase in hand, while 8-year-old Rachel sobbed, "Mommy, please don't go." His throat tightened as he recalled that night, moving between 3 bedrooms, soothing tears he couldn't stop, promising they'd be okay when he had no idea how. A single tear tracked down his lined face, dropping onto Caroline's signature, blurring the ink. "After all this time," he whispered, the words barely audible in the quiet kitchen. The letter fell from his fingers. His gaze drifted to the wall of photos. Rachel's graduation, Jake's baseball championship, Daniel's first day of kindergarten. A visual chronicle of everything Caroline had willingly missed. The milestones he'd navigated alone, selling his father's watch for Daniel's braces, working double shifts to pay for Rachel's dance lessons, learning to braid hair and bake birthday cakes, and be both parents when there was only ever one. Michael steadied himself against the counter, knuckles white. He'd built this life from the wreckage she'd left behind. Their children had grown into remarkable adults despite her absence, or perhaps because of it. He'd made sure they never doubted they were loved, even when one parent had found it so easy to walk away. He picked up the letter again, focusing on the phrase, "making things right." A bitter laugh escaped him. What could possibly make abandoning 3 children right? His finger traced a smudge on the second page. Something about the ink seemed off. The old mechanic in him, the one who'd fixed everything from bicycles to broken hearts over the years, caught the inconsistency. Before he could examine it closer, the phone rang. Caroline's name appeared on the caller ID, intruding into his home after 21 years of silence. Michael stared at the glowing screen, heart pounding, unsure whether to answer or let the past remain where it belonged. Michael silenced the ringing phone with a decisive press, Caroline's name disappearing from the screen. Not now. Not like this. He sank into the kitchen chair, hands trembling more violently than before. The letter lay spread before him, its words a grenade in his carefully ordered life. The clouds shifted outside, casting the kitchen in shadow. The grandfather clock ticked louder in the silence, each second an accusation. How many times had it marked painful moments? He remembered the day she left with perfect clarity. Her suitcase by the door, coat already on. "What about the children?" he'd asked, voice breaking. Her response came cold, detached. "You'll manage." No tears, no hesitation. Just 3 children's futures discarded like unwanted baggage. That night played in his mind like a movie he couldn't stop. Rachel crying for her mother, Jake silently clutching his baseball glove, 4-year-old Daniel too young to understand why Mommy wasn't coming home. Michael had moved between bedrooms until dawn broke, singing lullabies with a voice that kept catching, promising everything would be okay when nothing felt right. "We did just fine without you," he whispered to the empty room, his voice cracking. He cleared his throat, shoulders slumping before consciously straightening again. They had done fine. Better than fine. A week after Carolyn left, the mortgage past due notice had arrived. Michael had sold his father's watch, the only inheritance he'd received, to pay for Daniel's braces later that year. He'd hidden the financial strain, working double shifts at the garage while learning to cook, clean, and create the stability his children desperately needed. Michael wiped fresh tears as he looked at the wall of family photos. The space where Caroline's pictures once hung remained visible, a scar that never fully healed. He'd removed them one night after the children were asleep, unable to bear their questioning gazes at the smiling face of someone who'd chosen to leave them behind. He picked up the letter again, eyes focusing on the phrase, "making things right." A bitter laugh escaped him, echoing in the quiet kitchen. What exactly did she think she could make right? 21 years of absence. Birthdays, graduations, broken bones, first dates, college applications, moments that couldn't be reclaimed or replaced. The voicemail light blinked persistently on the phone. Michael ignored it, turning the letter over in his hands. What did she want after all this time? Money? Forgiveness? A place to stay now that Eric was gone? The thought left a sour taste in his mouth. The chill from the window reached him as clouds fully obscured the sun, matching his darkening mood. He shivered involuntarily, the cold seeping into bones that ached more with each passing year. Old injuries from decades at the garage, from carrying the weight of parenting alone. His finger traced the edge of the letter, mind racing. Caroline had always been practical to the point of coldness. She wouldn't reach out without a reason, and making things right wasn't it. There was something more, something she wasn't saying. Michael glanced at his watch, a 60th birthday gift from his children, its face grounding him in the present. Sunday dinner was hours away. He had time to decide what to tell them, how to protect the family they'd built without her. Michael paced the kitchen, letter tucked in his pocket where it seemed to burn against his thigh. Tell them or shield them? The question circled his mind like a persistent fly. He paused by the window, watching shadows lengthen across the garden he'd planted for therapeutic reasons, when Caroline left. His reflection stared back, worry lines he didn't recognize, tension in his jaw reminiscent of those first terrible weeks alone. He consciously relaxed his face, remembering Dr. Phillips' advice about stress during those early counseling sessions. 8-year-old Rachel's tear-streaked face appeared in his memory, looking up at him after a nightmare about her mother. Will she ever come back, Daddy? He'd dried her tears with gentle thumbs, choosing his words carefully. I don't know, sweetheart, but I promise I will always tell you the truth, even when it's hard. And I promise I'm not going anywhere. That promise had become his North Star through 21 years of single parenting. When Jake asked why Mom left, when Daniel wondered if it was somehow their fault, when Rachel needed awkward feminine advice, always the truth, delivered with compassion, never hiding reality behind comfortable lies. Michael began Sunday dinner preparations with deliberate ritual, finding comfort in the familiar routine. He took the special dishes from the cabinet, the ones they'd bought after Caroline left, creating new traditions from the ashes of old ones. He checked the worn recipe card for pot roast, edges stained from years of Sunday use. The wine open to breathe on the counter, a bottle from the collection he'd started when Daniel turned 21, the family finally complete in adulthood. Your mother has contacted me, he practiced aloud, voice breaking. No, too abrupt. I received a letter today. Still wrong. He tried again and again, the words dying in his throat each time, inadequate for the bomb they would drop on his children's lives. Flashes of Sunday dinners past filled his mind. Rachel bouncing in her seat, waving her college acceptance letter. Jake quietly announcing his first real job, pride evident in his restrained smile. Daniel's graduation dinner, the empty chair, a silent reminder of who hadn't watched him receive his diploma. The table had remained their constant, the place where life's victories and defeats were shared, where their family bond strengthened despite, or perhaps because of, Caroline's absence. Michael caught his reflection again in the darkening window. The worried expression seemed foreign on a face that had learned to carry joy despite abandonment. He made another conscious effort to relax, to find the strength his children would need when they heard the news. The letter pressed against his leg as he moved to check the roast, the aroma filling the kitchen with promises of comfort. Caroline had always claimed pot roast was too complicated, but he'd mastered it and a dozen other dishes, determined his children would have proper family meals despite her absence. He set the table for 4, never 5, each place representing the family they'd become. Rachel's slightly chipped plate that she'd insisted on keeping since high school. Jake's place always closest to the kitchen for easy access to seconds. Daniel's napkin folded precisely, a habit from his organized childhood. The sound of Rachel's car pulling into the driveway reached him first. Always punctual, like her father. Jake's deeper engine followed moments later, then the distinctive rumble of Daniel's motorcycle. Michael's hand moved to his pocket, confirming the letter's presence as he took a deep breath. The doorbell chimed, forcing decision time. His children waited outside, unaware that their Sunday ritual was about to collide with a past they'd learned to live without. Michael squared his shoulders, wiping his hands deliberately on a dish towel before moving to answer the door, the weight of his promise to always tell the truth heavy on his heart. The dining room glowed with candlelight, a tradition Michael had started years ago to make Sunday dinners feel special despite their missing member. Steam rose from the pot roast at the center of the table, its aroma a testament to skills he'd never planned to acquire. So the venue coordinator says we can have either the garden with the stone archway or the lakeside pavilion, Rachel said, scrolling through photos on her phone. Her dark hair, so like her mother's, fell forward as she leaned in, showing Michael options for her spring wedding. What do you think, Dad? Both are beautiful, sweetheart, Michael replied, serving Jake a second helping without being asked. Some habits never died. Which does Mark prefer? He says it's my decision. Rachel rolled her eyes affectionately. Typical. Jake cleared his throat, setting down his fork. Speaking of decisions, I got that promotion. Senior systems analyst. Starts next month. That's wonderful, Michael beamed, genuine pride momentarily displacing his anxiety. We should toast to that. Daniel, the quietest of his children, spoke up. And I submitted my graduate school application yesterday. Should hear back within 6 weeks. Michael looked at his 3 children, successful, kind, resilient adults who'd flourished despite early abandonment. The letter seemed to pulse in his pocket like a living thing. He waited until dessert, homemade apple pie served with ice cream melting slowly at the edges. I need to tell you something, he began, voice steady despite his racing heart. 3 pairs of eyes turned to him, forks pausing. I received a letter yesterday from your mother. The silence that followed felt physical, pressing against his ears. Rachel's fork clattered against her plate, the sound unnaturally loud. After 21 years? Rachel's face flushed with immediate anger. You've got to be kidding. Michael withdrew the letter, placing it on the table without unfolding it. Eric has died. She wants to reconnect with us. Jake's expression remained neutral, his analytical mind visibly processing the information. What exactly does she want? Why now? She says she's been thinking about us, about family. Michael kept his voice measured, watching their reactions carefully. She expressed regret. Rachel pushed her chair back abruptly, the scrape against hardwood echoing her displeasure. How dare she think she can just walk back in? After everything, her voice cracked. After missing everything. Michael watched his daughter struggle for composure, the wedding binder on the sideboard, a stark reminder of milestone moments Caroline had forfeited. Did she say anything specific about us? Daniel asked, leaning forward slightly. His eyes, the same shape as Caroline's, held curiosity rather than anger. About me? Rachel stared at her brother in disbelief. You can't be serious, Daniel. She left when you were 4. She didn't call, write, send birthday cards. Nothing. I know, Daniel replied quietly. That's why I'm asking. I don't remember her, not really, just fragments. Jake's arm moved to his younger brother's shoulder, a gesture of support that spoke volumes. It's natural to be curious. Curious? Rachel's voice rose. She abandoned us. Dad had to do everything, while she was off living her new life with Eric. She turned to Michael, eyes glistening. You had to learn to braid hair, for God's sake. You worked yourself to exhaustion. You never missed a single game or recital or parent-teacher conference. Michael nodded, touched by her fierce defense. That's true. But it was my privilege to be there for all of those moments. Would it be wrong if I wanted to meet her, just once? Daniel's question cut through the tension, soft but clear. Rachel stared at him, betrayal flashing across her features. How can you even consider it? Because I don't have your memories, Daniel answered simply. Good or bad, I'd like to form my own opinion. She is not coming to my wedding, Rachel declared, crossing her arms. That's final. Jake, ever the mediator, spoke carefully. I think everyone has the right to process this in their own way. We don't all have to respond identically. Michael watched the fracture lines forming between his children, the very thing he'd feared. Caroline's absence had wounded them differently according to their ages. Now her return threatened to do the same. Your mother contacted me about seeing you, Michael said gently. I've told her I'll pass along her request, but the decision to have contact belongs to each of you individually. No one is wrong here, whether you want to see her or not. Rachel wiped an angry tear, shaking her head. I can't believe we're even discussing this, after everything she put us through. After everything she put you through, Dad. Michael reached across the table, taking his daughter's hand. I made peace with her choices long ago, Rachel. Had to, for my own sanity and to be the father you all deserved. But that doesn't mean we have to welcome her back, Rachel insisted. No, Michael agreed. It doesn't. Daniel's voice was hesitant. Dad, what do you think we should do? Michael looked at each of his children. Rachel's protective anger, Jake's measured caution, Daniel's conflicted curiosity. The candles flickered between them, illuminating the family they'd become without Caroline. I think, he said carefully, that you should listen to your own hearts while respecting each other's decisions. This isn't about what I want, it's about what each of you needs. The silence that followed held the weight of 21 years of absence, now suddenly, unwelcomely present at their Sunday table. Michael arrived at Riverside Cafe 20 minutes early, deliberately choosing a window table with clear sight of the entrance. He ordered coffee he didn't want, arranging himself with practiced casualness while his heart hammered against his ribs. She entered at precisely 2 o'clock. Caroline's punctuality, one trait that hadn't changed. Michael's breath caught as she hesitated in the doorway, scanning the room. 21 years had etched fine lines around her eyes, streaked silver through her dark hair, but she remained recognizable, the woman whose absence had shaped his family's entire existence. Their eyes met across the crowded space. A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face before she approached, designer purse clutched like a shield. Michael, she said, sliding into the seat opposite him. Thank you for meeting me. He nodded, not trusting his voice immediately. The surreal nature of sitting across from his children's mother after 2 decades of silence struck him with physical force. You look well, she offered, studying him. I am well. He didn't elaborate, didn't return the observation. Caroline's fingers twisted the ring on her left hand, not his ring, but Eric's. Eric got sick so quickly, she said, dabbing at eyes that remained suspiciously dry. Pancreatic cancer. By the time they caught it. Michael nodded again, acknowledging the information without offering sympathy. I'm sorry for your loss, he said, the social nicety automatic rather than heartfelt. It makes you think about what matters, she continued, about family, connections, mistakes. The children are not children anymore, Michael responded, noting her flinch at his word choice. Rachel is 29, engaged to be married. Jake is 26, just received a promotion. Daniel is 24, applying to graduate programs. Rachel's getting married? Caroline's eyes widened. When? Spring, Michael replied, offering no further details. Caroline reached across the table toward his hand. Michael subtly shifted, leaving her hand alone on the table's surface. A small rejection that spoke volumes. I've missed so much, she said, voice catching theatrically. Their graduations, birthdays, all those moments. Yes, Michael agreed simply. You have. Discomfort flickered across Caroline's features at his lack of reassurance. She changed tactics. The market's been so unpredictable these days. I imagine retirement planning must be challenging for everyone. Michael's inner alarm sounded. This sudden pivot to finances felt calculated. I've managed, he replied neutrally. Do you still have the house? It must be worth considerably more now. We do. The plural pronoun was deliberate. The home belonged to their family, not to her. That's wonderful. Mortgage-free, I hope. That would be a blessing at our age. Michael studied her with new clarity, recognizing the familiar pattern of Caroline calculating angles, assessing resources. Some things never changed. Why did you contact me after 21 years, Caroline? Really? She blinked rapidly. I told you, Eric's death made me reevaluate. You've had 21 years to reevaluate, Michael interrupted gently. 2 decades of birthdays and Christmases. 21 opportunities to send cards, make calls, acknowledge our children's existence. I was ashamed, she whispered, tissue dabbing at eyes still remarkably dry. The longer I stayed away, the harder it became to reach out. And yet here you are, immediately after Eric's death, asking about the mortgage. Color rose in her cheeks. That's not fair. I'm simply concerned about your financial security. My financial security wasn't your concern when I was selling my father's watch to pay for Daniel's braces, Michael said quietly, or working double shifts to afford Rachel's college applications. Caroline looked away, momentarily silenced. What do you really want, Caroline? To reconnect with my children, she insisted. To make amends before it's too late. Michael noticed her subtle emphasis on my children, her continued ownership despite abandonment. They're adults now, he said carefully. I'll tell them you want contact, but the decision is theirs. Rachel's wedding, she began. Is Rachel's decision, he finished firmly. Frustration flashed across Caroline's features before she composed herself. Of course. I understand. Michael doubted that very much. The woman sitting across from him seemed fundamentally unchanged, self-interested, calculating, performing emotions rather than feeling them. Perhaps I could help with wedding expenses, she suggested, as a gesture of goodwill. Rachel and Mark are managing just fine, Michael replied, the implied financial need insulting after all they'd overcome without her. Caroline's smile tightened. Well, I hope they'll at least consider including me. A daughter should have her mother at her wedding. Michael met her gaze steadily. A daughter should have a mother who didn't walk out when she was 8 years old. The unflinching truth hung between them. Caroline's practiced regret, no match for 2 decades of lived experience. I've made mistakes, she conceded, terrible ones, but I want to make things right. Some things can't be made right, Caroline. They can only be accepted. He stood, placing money for his untouched coffee on the table. I'll tell the children you want to see them. Whatever happens next is up to them. Caroline reached for his arm. Michael, please. Goodbye, Caroline. He gently removed her hand. The wedding ring indentation on his finger long faded, but memory of their vows, the ones she'd broken, still sharp. Outside, rain had begun to fall, matching his somber mood. Michael stood beneath the cafe awning, letting the conversation settle in his mind. Caroline's questions about finances, her sudden interest in Rachel's wedding, none of it felt like genuine remorse. Has someone who once abandoned you ever returned when they needed something? Share your experience below. Like if you felt this pain, follow to see if Michael protects the family he built alone. As he walked to his car, Michael's resolve hardened. He'd keep his promise to relay Caroline's wishes to his children, but he would also protect them from further harm, even if that harm came disguised as a mother's belated love. The aroma of pot roast filled the kitchen as Michael prepared Sunday dinner, the familiar routine, a welcome distraction from the week's turmoil. Caroline's reappearance had cast a shadow over their lives. Her presence felt even in absence, like a ghost suddenly made flesh. The doorbell chimed, heralding Rachel's arrival. She entered with her usual whirlwind energy, though Michael noted the strain around her eyes. "Is Mark coming?" Michael asked, accepting her kiss on his cheek. "Meeting us here? Last-minute wedding band crisis." She hung her coat, moving automatically to help with dinner preparations. Jake arrived minutes later, his quiet presence steadying. The siblings exchanged subdued greetings, the usual banter noticeably absent. Daniel's motorcycle rumbled in the driveway, later than his normal punctuality. Michael observed his youngest as he entered, shoulders tense, gaze averted, unusual nervous energy in his movements. Throughout dinner, the conversation remained stilted, artificial. Rachel discussed wedding details with forced enthusiasm. Jake shared anecdotes from work. Daniel remained uncharacteristically silent, picking at his food. Michael sensed the undercurrents, watching the glances between his children. Rachel's clipped responses to Daniel, Jake's mediating attempts. Something had happened. As Michael served dessert, apple crumble with vanilla ice cream, Rachel finally broke. "I saw you with her, Daniel, at Riverside Cafe, Tuesday afternoon." Her voice sliced through pretense like a knife. The room froze. Daniel's spoon halted midway to his mouth. Jake closed his eyes briefly. "You were spying on me?" Daniel asked, color draining from his face. "I wasn't spying," Rachel retorted. "Megan and I were meeting about bridesmaid dresses. I saw you through the window." Her voice cracked. "With her." Michael set down the dessert bowl, processing this revelation. Daniel had met Caroline without telling any of them. "I just wanted to see what she was like," Daniel said defensively. "I don't even remember her, Rachel. Not like you do." "So you went behind our backs? Behind Dad's back?" Rachel's voice rose with each word. "After everything he's done for us?" "I didn't go behind anyone's back," Daniel insisted. "I made my own decision as an adult." "A decision that affects all of us," Rachel countered, tears forming. "This family has been through enough without you sneaking around with the woman who abandoned us." Jake finally intervened, his calm voice a counterpoint to Rachel's emotion. "Let's all take a breath. Daniel has the right to his own choices, just like you do, Rachel." "How can you defend this?" Rachel demanded. "You remember what it was like when she left, Dad working himself to exhaustion, us wondering what we did wrong." "I'm not defending anything," Jake replied evenly. "I'm saying we don't all have to respond the same way to her return." Michael watched the argument unfold, pain squeezing his chest. This was exactly what he'd feared. Caroline's return fracturing the family they'd built without her. "If you're on her side, maybe you should ask her to walk you down the aisle instead of Dad," Rachel snapped at Daniel, pushing back from the table. Daniel flinched as if struck. "That's not fair. Neither is going behind our backs to meet with someone who didn't care enough to send a single birthday card in 21 years. "Rachel," Michael finally interjected, his quiet voice cutting through the argument. "That's enough." The siblings fell silent, tension crackling between them. Michael turned to Daniel. "Why didn't you tell me you were meeting her?" Daniel looked down, shame coloring his features. "I didn't want to hurt you, and I was afraid you'd try to talk me out of it." "I would have respected your decision," Michael said gently, "just as I respect Rachel's." Daniel nodded, swallowing hard. "I know that now. I'm sorry." Michael nodded, accepting the apology. "What did you talk about?" Daniel hesitated. "She asked a lot of questions, about my life, school, about you." "What kind of questions about Dad?" Jake asked, suddenly alert. "Whether you'd remarried, if you still had the house, about your retirement plans." Daniel looked uncomfortable. It felt off somehow. Then she mentioned maybe helping with Rachel's wedding costs if she was invited. Rachel's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "That's why I didn't call her again," Daniel admitted. "It didn't feel like she wanted to know me. It felt like she wanted something from us." Michael wasn't surprised. The cafe meeting had revealed Caroline's unchanged nature, calculating, self-interested, viewing relationships as transactions. "Did she ask about money directly?" Jake asked. his analytical mind working. "Not directly," Daniel replied. But she kept circling back to finances, the house value, Dad's retirement savings, whether he'd had health problems. A vase tipped over as Rachel gestured emphatically, water spreading across the table like the conflict spreading through their family. "She's after money." "Of course she is." "We don't know that for certain," Jake cautioned, though his tone suggested he agreed with his sister's assessment. "I should have told you," Daniel said, looking at Michael. "I'm sorry." Michael reached across the table, squeezing his son's hand. "You have nothing to apologize for. You were curious about your mother. That's natural." "She's not my mother," Daniel said quietly. "Not really. She's just someone who gave birth to me." The simple statement hung in the air, powerful in its truth. Rachel wiped angry tears. "I can't believe we're even dealing with this, after 21 years of nothing." "This is why I didn't want to tell any of you about the letter," Michael admitted. "I was afraid it would come between you." Jake shook his head. "This isn't your fault, Dad. It's hers." Michael looked at his 3 children, Rachel's protective anger, Jake's measured caution, Daniel's disillusionment. Despite their disagreement, their love for each other and for him remained unshakable. Caroline hadn't managed to break that, at least. "What do we do now?" Daniel asked. "We decide as a family," Michael replied. "Together." The tension began to ease, solidarity forming where conflict had threatened to divide. "She doesn't get to break us twice," Jake said firmly. Rachel reached for Daniel's hand across the table, an olive branch extended. "I'm sorry I yelled." "It's just—" "I know," Daniel interrupted, squeezing her hand. "I get it now. I really do." Michael watched his children make peace, pride swelling in his chest despite the circumstances. They had weathered the first storm of Caroline's return, emerging stronger in their unity. The family they had built without her would not be easily torn apart, not by guilt, not by manipulation, not even by blood ties long severed by abandonment. Rain pattered against the windows of Jake's apartment, the steady rhythm matching Michael's heartbeat as he sat across from his middle child. The photo album lay open between them on the coffee table, its pages chronicling the life they'd built without Caroline. "I've been thinking about what Daniel said," Jake spoke, his analytical mind having processed the information from Sunday's revelation. "About Mom asking financial questions." Michael nodded, noting Jake's hesitation before the word Mom, a title earned through presence, not merely biology. "It confirms what I sensed during our meeting. You think she needs money?" Not a question, but a conclusion, delivered in Jake's characteristic straightforward manner. "I think Eric's death may have left her in a difficult position," Michael replied carefully. "And I think she sees us, particularly the house, as potential resources." Jake's finger traced the edge of a Christmas photo. Michael surrounded by his 3 children, faces bright with laughter despite the empty space where a mother should have been. "We need to present a united front," he said decisively. "All of us." Michael studied his son, the peacemaker, the strategist, so much like himself in temperament. "What are you thinking?" A single conversation, one meeting, all of us present, clear boundaries established. Jake's eyes, thoughtful behind his glasses, met Michael's. "She doesn't get to approach us individually anymore. No more secret meetings, no more divide and conquer." Michael felt a surge of pride at his son's protective instinct. "That's essentially what I was considering." "It should be at the house," Jake continued. "Our territory, not hers. Neutral ground gives her too much power. Rachel might object to having her there at all. Rachel will agree if it means protecting you and ending this quickly," Jake replied confidently. She's angry, but she's also practical. Michael nodded, knowing his daughter's fierce loyalty. And Daniel? Needs closure more than connection now. He saw through her act pretty quickly. They fell silent, the rain intensifying outside. Jake's apartment reflected his personality, orderly, thoughtful, with carefully chosen photographs of family prominently displayed. A stark contrast to the home he'd shared with Caroline, where images had been curated for appearance rather than meaning. "You've never asked about her," Michael observed. "Not since you were 12. Jake adjusted his glasses, a habit from childhood when confronting difficult topics. "I remember enough," he said simply, "and I've watched what her absence did to all of us, especially you." Michael started to protest, but Jake continued, "You never complained, not once. But I saw the exhaustion, the worry about money, how you'd fall asleep helping with homework." His voice held no self-pity, only quiet observation. "You built something remarkable from what she destroyed, Dad. I won't let her threaten that now." The weight of those words settled between them. Father and son united in protection of the family they'd forged through hardship. "I'll make the call," Michael decided, reaching for his phone. Jake nodded, hand resting supportively on his father's shoulder as Michael dialed the number he'd never thought he'd use again. Carolyn answered on the second ring, voice eager. "Michael? I was hoping you'd call." "We need to talk," he replied, voice steady despite his racing heart. "All of us, together." A pause. "Of course. When?" "Thursday evening, at the house." His tone left no room for negotiation. "The house," she repeated, too quickly. "That would be perfect, actually." The eagerness in her voice confirmed their suspicions. This wasn't about reconnection, it was about access. 7 o'clock, Michael continued. "Just one conversation, Caroline." "I understand," she replied, though he doubted she truly did. "Thank you for this opportunity, Michael. It means everything to me." After ending the call, Michael met Jake's knowing gaze. "She agreed too quickly to coming to the house." "Of course she did," Jake replied. That was never in doubt. Michael's weathered hand rested beside Jake's younger one on the table, generational strength, wisdom passing between them. "She doesn't understand what she's walking into." "No," Jake agreed, quiet confidence in his voice. "She doesn't." The rain intensified as they finalized their strategy, thunder occasionally punctuating their conversation. In Caroline's absence, their family had developed a unique strength, one built on honesty, shared struggle, and unbreakable bonds. Thursday would simply make that reality clear to the woman who'd once broken their trust. Have you ever had to stand firm against someone who once broke your heart? Comment your story of courage, like if you admire Michael's strength, follow to see if the family stays united in the final confrontation. As Michael prepared to leave, he paused before the framed photo on Jake's desk. The three siblings at Rachel's college graduation, arms linked, Michael beaming proudly beside them. Their family, complete without Caroline. "She doesn't get to break us twice," Jake said firmly, echoing his earlier sentiment from Sunday dinner. Michael nodded, resolve hardening as he stepped toward the door. Thursday would bring confrontation, but also, finally, closure. Raindrops fell steadily as Caroline's car pulled into the driveway of the home she'd abandoned 21 years earlier. Michael watched through the living room window, noting her appraising glance at the property. The well-maintained garden, the fresh paint, the new roof he'd saved 3 years to afford. "She's here," he announced quietly to his children, positioned strategically throughout the room. Rachel stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, wedding binder deliberately visible on the mantel. Jake occupied the armchair near the door, calm and observant. Daniel sat on the couch, photo album open beside him. Tangible evidence of a life lived without Caroline. The doorbell chimed. Michael moved unhurriedly to answer it, aware of the symbolism in every step. This house, once jointly theirs, had become exclusively his family's sanctuary through years of mortgage payments, maintenance, and memories made without her. Caroline stood on the porch, rain speckling her expensive coat. Her smile faltered as Michael remained firmly in the doorway, neither stepping out nor inviting her in. "Michael," she greeted, eyes moving past him to glimpse the interior. "Thank you for arranging this." "Caroline." He nodded, making no move to usher her inside. The boundary was both physical and symbolic. She would not cross this threshold easily. She shifted uncomfortably, rain increasing around them. "Might we go inside? It's getting rather wet out here." "We'll talk here," Michael replied calmly. "This won't take long." Confusion crossed her features. "But I thought, the children are inside, yes?" Michael's voice remained steady. "They've agreed to see you, but we have some things to clarify first." Caroline's practiced smile slipped. "I've missed you all so much," she began, eyes suddenly brimming with tears that hadn't materialized during their cafe meeting. "Every day has been torture thinking about what I threw away." 21 years, Michael observed. "That's a lot of tortured days without a single phone call." Color rose in her cheeks. "I was ashamed," she insisted. "The longer I stayed away, the harder it became to reach out." "Daniel told us about your meeting," Michael said, watching her reaction carefully. "About your questions regarding our finances, the house, my retirement plans." Caroline blinked rapidly. "I was simply concerned about your welfare. After 2 decades of complete disinterest in our welfare," Michael finished. "Curious timing, following Eric's death." "That's not fair," she protested, voice rising. "His death made me reevaluate everything." "Including your financial situation?" Michael asked quietly. The direct question hung between them, rain falling more heavily now, creating a watery barrier. Caroline's expression hardened, the mask of maternal regret slipping. "I don't know what Daniel told you, but he misunderstood." "Daniel understood perfectly," Michael interrupted gently. "Just as I understand why you're suddenly interested in Rachel's wedding, in this house, in my retirement savings." "How dare you?" Caroline whispered, genuine anger replacing performance. "I'm their mother." "Biology doesn't make you a mother," Michael replied, his calm certainty more powerful than any raised voice. "Presence does. Sacrifice does. Love expressed through daily actions does." Behind him, the front door opened wider. His 3 children stepped onto the porch, forming a united front beside their father. Caroline's eyes widened at the unexpected show of solidarity. "The family you abandoned has moved forward without you," Michael continued. "We've built something beautiful from what you left behind." "Rachel," Caroline appealed directly to her daughter, "surely you want your mother at your wedding?" Rachel's expression remained impassive. "My father will walk me down the aisle," she replied steadily. "The only parent who earned that right." Caroline turned to Daniel, her last hope. "We had such a nice conversation," she reminded him. "I thought we connected." "You asked about Dad's finances within 5 minutes of meeting me," Daniel observed. "That wasn't connection, that was reconnaissance." Jake remained silent, his presence alone a statement of allegiance. Caroline's composure cracked entirely, calculation replacing pretense. "I made mistakes," she conceded sharply. "Terrible ones, but this house was half mine. My investment was forfeited when you walked away," Michael finished, "just as your role in their lives was." "I'll get lawyers involved," Caroline threatened, desperation evident. "I have rights." You surrendered those rights when you left without a backward glance, Michael replied. We have 21 years of documented abandonment, Caroline. No judge would side with you. Rain streamed down her face, indistinguishable from tears. The family stood unmoved, their unity impenetrable after years of weathering life's storms together. You'll regret this when you need someone, Caroline said finally, bitterness replacing manipulation. All of you. We have each other, Michael answered simply. We always have. Caroline's gaze swept across the four of them one last time, seeing what she had thrown away. Not just a husband, but a family bound by something stronger than blood. Choice, commitment, unwavering presence. She turned without another word, hurrying through the rain to her car. They watched silently as she drove away, taking her belated regrets and financial schemes with her. The rain continued falling, but Michael felt lighter than he had in weeks. He turned to his children, seeing in their expressions the same relief, the same certainty. She's really gone, Rachel whispered, the anger she'd carried finally beginning to dissolve. She was gone 21 years ago, Jake observed quietly. This was just confirmation. Daniel closed the photo album he'd brought outside, the evidence of a life well lived without Caroline. We didn't need her then, he said with newfound confidence, and we don't need her now. Michael put his arms around his children, drawing them close as the rain began to ease. Caroline had left a gaping hole in their lives once, but they had filled it together, with love, perseverance, and unbreakable bonds forged through shared struggle. The door closed behind them as they stepped back into their home, leaving Caroline's shadow outside where it belonged. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, casting rainbow patterns across the church floor where Michael waited with Rachel. 6 months had passed since Caroline's failed attempt to re-enter their lives. 6 months of healing, of strengthened bonds, of moving forward, unburdened by the past. Nervous? Michael asked, watching his daughter adjust her veil for the 10th time. Rachel's smile illuminated her face, radiant in white lace. Not about marrying Mark, she replied. Just about tripping in these heels. Michael chuckled, heart swelling as he looked at his firstborn. The little girl who had sobbed for her mother 21 years ago now stood before him as a confident woman, eyes clear and full of joy. You look beautiful, sweetheart, he said softly, voice catching. Rachel reached up, straightening his tie with familiar affection. Don't you dare make me cry and ruin my makeup, she warned, though her own eyes glistened. Save the tears for your speech. From beyond the closed doors, the string quartet began playing, signaling 5 minutes until the ceremony. Rachel took a deep breath, suddenly serious. Thank you, Dad, she said, meeting his gaze directly. For everything, for being enough for all of us. Michael swallowed hard against the lump forming in his throat. It was my privilege, he replied simply. The greatest honor of my life. Your mother missed everything beautiful about you, he added after a moment. But I didn't miss a moment. Rachel blinked rapidly, carefully dabbing beneath her eyes. I said no crying, she reminded him, though her smile remained. The doors opened, revealing a church filled with friends and family. Jake stood proudly as best man beside Mark at the altar. Daniel waited halfway down the aisle for his role in escorting their grandmother. The journey from broken family to this moment of celebration stretched across Michael's heart like a roadmap of perseverance. As the wedding march began, Rachel's hand tightened on his arm. Ready, Dad? Michael nodded, overwhelmed by love for the remarkable woman his daughter had become. Together, they stepped forward, his steady presence guiding her toward her future, just as it had throughout her past. The ceremony passed in a blur of emotion, vows exchanged, rings placed, promises made. Michael watched from the front pew, pride mingling with bittersweet awareness of life's passages. When the minister pronounced Rachel and Mark husband and wife, the church erupted in applause, celebrating not just a marriage, but the triumph of love over abandonment, presence over absence. At the reception, Michael's father-daughter dance brought guests to tears. As they swayed to "What a Wonderful World," Rachel whispered, "We did okay, didn't we, Dad?" "The four of us?" "Better than okay," Michael replied, thinking of all they had overcome. "We thrived." Later, surrounded by family and friends, Michael watched his children together. Rachel, radiant in her wedding gown, Jake and Daniel teasing each other during toasts, the three of them stronger for having weathered life's hardships together. Caroline's absence, once a wound, had scarred over into something that had ultimately made them more resilient, more appreciative of those who chose to stay. Weeks later, while searching for tax documents, Michael came across Caroline's letter in his desk drawer. He paused, realizing he hadn't thought about her in days. The power she once held over their family had dissolved, her brief reappearance serving only to confirm the strength of what they had built without her. He held the letter briefly, considering its contents with detached clarity. Then, without ceremony, he returned it to the drawer. Not worth keeping, but no longer worth destroying either, simply an artifact from a past that had lost its power to hurt. Through the open window, he heard laughter from the backyard, where his children had gathered for their monthly barbecue. Jake arguing good-naturedly about proper grilling technique, Daniel describing his graduate research to anyone who would listen. Rachel and Mark discussing honeymoon photos. Michael smiled, closing the drawer on Caroline's letter and the past it represented. 21 years ago, he'd faced the daunting task of raising 3 children alone, wondering if he could possibly be enough for them. Today, the answer surrounded him. In Rachel's confidence, Jake's integrity, Daniel's compassion. In the family, they had become despite, or perhaps because of, the challenges they had faced together. He moved toward the open window, drawn by the sounds of the family he had built. The afternoon sunlight warmed his face as he stepped outside to join them, leaving Caroline's forgotten letter behind where it belonged, in a closed drawer, in the past, no longer relevant to the life they had created without her. The future stretched before them, bright with possibility and unencumbered by old wounds. They had not merely survived abandonment, they had transformed it into the foundation for something stronger, more intentional, more precious, a family bound not by obligation, but by choice, by love, by the simple, profound act of showing up day after day through hardship and joy alike. And in the end, that had made all the difference. You've been there, haven't you? Sitting at your kitchen table, a letter or phone call suddenly reopening wounds you thought had long since healed. The coffee grows cold as memories flood back, promises broken, trust shattered, family bonds strained to breaking. That moment when Michael found Caroline's letter after 21 years wasn't just his story. It's a chapter many of us have lived through in one form or another. We know what it's like when the past comes knocking, uninvited and unwelcome, the way your breath catches, how your hands tremble just slightly, the sudden weight pressing against your chest. There's something about betrayal that cuts deeper when you've lived long enough to know the true value of loyalty. When you've weathered decades of storms, the sunny day departures hurt all the more. But here's what I've come to believe, watching Michael's journey. Our scars tell stories of survival, not just suffering. Remember how he stood in that doorway, rain falling between him and the woman who once broke his heart. That wasn't just a man defending his home, it was someone who had transformed abandonment into strength, absence into presence, failure into triumph. When life knocked him down, he didn't just get back up, he built something beautiful from the broken pieces. There's wisdom in that kitchen table where Sunday dinners became sacred ritual. In the careful way Michael told his children the truth, even when it hurt. In the quiet dignity of choosing forgiveness without allowing further harm. Ain't it something, folks, how the hardest roads often lead to the sturdiest foundations? The family Michael built wasn't despite Caroline's absence. In many ways, it was because of it. Every choice to stay, to show up, to put his children first, created something stronger than what was lost. Maybe you're sitting at your own kitchen table right now, tears falling on some unwelcome reminder of past pain. Maybe you're standing at a threshold, deciding who gets to cross it. Or perhaps you're witnessing the fruits of your own perseverance. Children grown strong and kind, despite difficult beginnings. A life rebuilt one faithful day at a time. Whatever page you're on, know this. The story doesn't end with broken trust or midnight tears. It continues with each choice to stand firm in your worth, to protect what matters, to believe that love expressed through daily presence will always outweigh promises broken through permanent absence. Like Michael watching his daughter dance at her wedding, there comes a moment when the pain that once defined you becomes merely a chapter in a much larger, more beautiful story.